Good morning. It is sort of mid-January 2026. Apologies again for the slow sort of release of videos. Obviously work has been a bit hectic at the moment, and so I'm just trying to catch up now. So I am doing videos in such a way that timed in such a way that will be, what am I doing at that specific moment? So late January, what am I doing in preparation for a through hike? Well, we've all gone through the permit process. If you have got a permit, congratulations. If you still got to go, want to shift the date, then obviously you've got cancellations, and the fallback obviously is local permits, which are all feasible. Thing to remember is, most importantly, put a reminder in your calendar 3 weeks before your hike start date. A big fat reminder, put multiple reminders in. Print your permit. The number of years people don't print their permit, and once you start, your hike date starts, you lose that permit if you haven't printed it. It's reality, so don't screw that up. Please print your permit, and if you're not going to use it, please give it up. Go back onto the portal and cancel it. Now, the reason why, if you know you're not going to use the PCTA permit, the long distance permit, and you plan to change, releasing that gives you another advantage. It means that if later in the season you decide, actually I can do a bit of sectional, I want to use the 500 mile plus permit that PCTA also issue. If you've already holding a PCTA permit, long distance permit, even if you haven't used it, you can't then apply for a second one. You're only allowed one per season. So there's two advantages. If you're not going to use a permit, give it up, and also it frees up the opportunity that you can later in the season still reapply, not for a full permit, but for a 500 mile plus permit, and that is a key component if you're going to hike on local permits. So anyway, food for thought. So what would I be doing at this time, or what I am doing? Guess what? I'm doing shakedown hikes. Okay, I'm not carrying a pack at the moment, I'm carrying a camera, but the principle's the same. I'm making sure my feet are hardened. The reason for that is, the last thing I want to do is do maybe day one, day two, and be nursing blisters from the start. Same for gear. I've mentioned before about chafing on shorts and whatever leggings you might use. Having that happen to you on the first, second or third day is miserable. And the dropout rate as hikers in those first few days is disappointing, shall we say, that so many people feel the need that they have to leave the trail. Try and do this early preparation beforehand. Now, another thing that happened to me in 2025, which never happened to me before, is I had an early injury, I want to say it's serious, one that made me think the necessary to come off trail. I had a knee muscle issue on the second day, and this was after all my training, all my preparation. I've hiked the trail 5 times. How did I screw this up? And it turned out that I actually had one of my insoles, for some reason, that second or third day, had collapsed on my right foot, my right shoe, and that was causing my knee to sort of curve in every time I hiked. And I didn't fully realise it until the pain started, and the pain kept compounding. And it was one of those pains where, on the second day it started, on the third day it was getting worse, and my pace was really slowing down. So I came off trail at Julian, and I went to 2 Foot Adventures and got an insole that hopefully would correct the issue. But the thing I faced was, hang on, I've still got the injury. I've got the injury on my, and walking is painful. Do I rest up, or do I try and carry on trail and deal with it on trail? And this is one of the quandaries you're going to face if you have an injury. Is it better to stop, or is it better to continue, or worst case scenario, go home? Which is, I hope you don't get to that stage. And that is one of those things where partly doing early shakedown hikes and testing your gear and your shoes, and you get a feel for what is a real, an injury you have to worry about, and what is potentially a manageable injury. So what happened to me was, I put these new inserts in, and it did fix the problem, but the damage or the injury was already there. So I took 2 days off at Julian, and I actually walked around the town, and I could feel that the insult was actually doing something. Still hurt like crazy, but it was enough to tell me, no, this is actually going to solve it. I could see it wasn't compounding, it wasn't getting worse. I could actually feel some benefit. So I decided to go back on trail, and I learned a very painful lesson. The act of me putting a new insole in changed my foot position in my shoe. So guess what? I got new blisters in places I didn't have them before. So on top of that, I had my knee injury that was still there, but gradually getting better, and a whole new set of blisters, which were painful as hell. And I can see in those circumstances, the act of actually solving the problem adds additional issues that you have to deal with. And I can see why people would come off trail in those circumstances, because it's just miserable. But I knew the blisters were my fault. I knew the blisters would heal. I knew the insole was actually correcting. And probably about a week later, I was starting to really get my miles back. So I think that was partly, I knew what my body was telling me. And it was manageable, but it was miserable. And I really did think of coming off trail a couple of times during that period. So, yeah, a part of the reason why I'm doing shakedown hikes is to give you a sense of what is a real injury and maybe what is something you can manage on trail, maybe with a couple of stops. But obviously, you've got to, everybody's different. But I managed to carry on. And I had loads of stops. I actually just did the trail in 2025 in 112 days, including all the stops. So when I was moving well. But yeah, I've learned a hard lesson about managing injuries. And the other thing I would say to you is, this year I also had something that never happened to me before. I had a dental problem. So obviously, if you know you've got something problem with your teeth, get them fixed before you go on trail. Now, this happened to me on trail. It wasn't something I was aware of, but towards the section K, which is one of the most remotest sections in Washington, towards the end of my hike, I got a tooth problem. Now I thought, oh, that's sore, but within a couple of days, it's swollen. I had swelling in my gum. I had swelling around my jaw, and I was very, very lucky that I got into what's called Stevens Pass, and I was literally on the top of the pass. I was ringing all the dentists possible in Leavenworth. None were available. I was arriving at Stevens Pass on Thursday evening, so the only workable day was Friday. Otherwise, I had to stay over the weekend. So I was ringing around, and by luck, I got through to a dentist in Wenatchee, which is a bit off trail, but he was turns out he was a former hiker. And they managed to deal with they basically extracted the tooth. It had a really bad infection, well, a manageable infection, shall we say. But he told me something that was very sort of shocking. He said, had you gone into section K and continued, he said, the swelling, your swelling, the infection could have got into my jaw. And he said, had I not sorted it out there and then, or maybe within a day or so, he said, I'd probably be sending you to ER. So, yeah, keep that in mind. If you have things, there are some things you have to come off trail for. So I had both this year, so okay, keep that in mind. So, what am I doing? Permits we spoke about. I'm also I've got my CAL FIRE permit. It's very easy to do. It's online. It takes 10 minutes. It's all electronic, and there's no money. You just go through this sort of video. So get your CAL FIRE permit. If you are, or one of your partners are supporting you on trail with a car or a vehicle, get an adventure pass. Now, these are little hang tags you put in your vehicle that you need on trailheads, or certain trailheads, certainly early on anyway. And they're available at local gas stations. So if you arrive in the area, get one of those adventure passes. And also stores, so some of the local stores carry them as well, but they're called adventure passes, and you just hang them in your vehicle. And they're issued annually. Next one. Right, I said preparation. Obviously get your blisters sorted and your feet hardened. The expectation that you will not get blisters, yeah, dream on. Most hikers will get some blisters early on in their training. It is perfectly normal. Your feet are basically getting accustomed to your shoes. You can probably get socks that reduce it, but be prepared that if you are on trail and you decide to change your brand of shoes, fully expect a whole new set of blisters. That's normal, okay? Your feet have just been repositioned. And I had that one experience where the brand I wanted wasn't there, and I made the mistake of not having shoes sent forward or at least pre-booked or available ahead of me, and I had to change brand. That was one of the most miserable, painful experiences I did that in 24, 23, where I went from Ultra Lone Peaks to Ultra, I think, Olympuses or whatever. I can't remember what they're called. But yeah, big mistake, changing brand. Try and avoid that if you can. Right, other things, right. I'm testing my tent. I've got a Z-Pack type tents. They're single wall. So learning how to pitch it is very important. learning how to pitch it at different heights. So for example, if you want to have wind, if it's a windy night, and especially if it's raining, knowing how to pitch it and tension it correctly so you don't get water sort of coming into your basin of your tent. And it does happen. Also be fully prepared that during a very, very heavy rainstorm, you might actually have to get outside and readjust your tensioning lines. Knowing and familiarity with your tent like that is very important. It saves you having a flooded tent. And we see them every year, certainly near the start, where people are learning their tents. I do remember one incident where somebody had a Z-Pax tent, which have, I don't know if you're familiar with them, have these little sort of almost like a goat head type clips on their doors, which basically is a double hook system. And clearly, Black Marina, somebody didn't know how to use it, because what they were doing was they were just using a peg inside those little, a very thin peg inside those little hooks, not realising that those hooks are supposed to be holding out the doors to form the vestibule. And when I gently, politely reminded them, oh, by the way, this is how you do it, they gave themselves the trail name Vestibule 1 and Vestibule 2. So, yeah, they said I basically effectively doubled the volume, the volume space of their tent. Anyway, keep that in mind. Familiarity is very, very, very good. Can't do you any harm. Right. Sleep systems. Obviously, if you've got a quilt and you've never used one before, they can be really frustrating early on. I love them. I use them religiously, but the first couple of times I used them, I was rolling. I had drafts. I had, the clips didn't go around the sleep pad. Yeah, practice that before you go out. It's because I thought some people get really complaining about their quilt and not realising how to use it, and it is annoying if you are like me, a side sleeper or roll around a lot. You want to make sure that you clip your quilts properly. The next thing, gear. You've obviously going to be checking, say the snow gear. That's probably going to be that's always the challenging one on the PCT. I mentioned it in the previous video. Check out the San Jacinto Trail Report the week before you start hiking, and then get a judgment on whether or not you need snow gear at San Jacinto. You probably will. Certainly, most years you need it at 151.8, which is Paradise Valley Cafe. But knowing where to send it at the start is always that one niggle. Should I carry it from the start? No, don't need to carry it from the start. But should I carry it? So I send it to 151.8 or send it to Idlewild and hitch in from mile 151.8, go into Idlewild, pick it up and come back to 151.8 with snow gear. That's always a tough one. My general rule is I do send it to Paradise Valley Cafe or Idlewild and hitch in and get back. And so far, that has served me well. So I've never had a situation where I've gone up that section and not needed it, or at least been glad that I had it. The thing about snow is you may have sections like this, which are, clear, nothing. You might turn a corner, big patch of snow that you potentially, in some cases, can be quite tricky. So that is why you'll get some people saying, oh, I did it with trekking poles. Yeah, well, good luck. I'm very much a firm believer in having some arrest tool, be it a ice axe or a whippet if you're experienced in using one. These are arrest tools that are better in your hand than either basically and deployed rather than on your backpack or in some post box which you're miles away from. Have it when you need it. Also added to that is if you've got a chance to do practice snow skills, this is the time. If you've not done it before, I was very fortunate to be trained when I was about 15, 16, and you never stop learning. You're always it also gives you much more confidence on snow, and you also know when to deploy early. And I think if you're in these situations where not having, I think the argument is not knowing how to use an ice axe means I won't carry one. Yeah, that doesn't mean you go into the area where you need one. That's a bit illogical, but hey, you meet people like that, so it's more dangerous if I don't know how to use it. Well, learn how to use it, or don't go into those areas which warrant snow gear, because you're then putting the rescue teams. They just roll their eyes. I used to I was helped basically with logistics with a friend of mine who was on mountain rescue in Scotland many years ago. I wasn't on the team. I was just supporting some logistics occasionally. And they just said, some things that people say and do. Look, if the conditions warrant snow gear, learn how to use it, or don't. My advice is probably not advisable to go in there, and maybe come back to those sections when the weather conditions are better. So keep that in mind. Okay, next one. Right, backpacks, base weight, always a big one. Now I regularly hike with about 18 pounds. I would say 18 to 22 is reasonable good sort of starting weight. If it's much higher than that, you're gonna have a miserable time, and if it's much lower than that, you're probably carrying a few luxuries. And if you get down to below 10, then you're probably just carrying a handkerchief. That's good luck. I've gone down to, I think last time I did this, I worked out, I think I got down to 7.5 pounds. I can't do that for sustained periods. It's, you feel really good. Oh, I'm really slick. I've got a tiny pack. Oh my, great. But over 100, 150 days, continuous, I found that a good night's sleep is the most important thing. And if I need a few luxuries to achieve that, to recover day on day, such that for 100 to 150 days, every morning I can get up reasonably refreshed, then I'll take the extra weight. And I did a sub 100 with 19 pounds, sub 100 day. I might regularly hike 100 to 115 days for the last 5 seasons, all with 18, 19 pound base weight. Doesn't mean you go faster. Having a super light pack, you might feel, oh great, and if you can make it work, and as usually the younger people, I'm an old fart, you can tell, the younger people can make it work because comfort is less of an issue for them. As you get older, having that sleep recovery is very important. So I regularly hike with 18, 19 pounds base weight, and I would say if I met people with 25 and above, I would actually say, look, try and, experience has shown to try and reduce that weight, because certainly when you go into the Sierra, you're going to be carrying extra bear cans, and you want a pack that actually is, I personally go for expandable packs. These 30 litre, 40 litre packs are maybe great in the desert where you're not carrying very much, but when you get to the Sierra, you want something that has a high weight capacity, so you're not going to stress the shoulder straps. So I've got one of those, or multiple ones of these roll down Dyneema packs, one from Z-Packs and one from Hyperlite. I've become a Hyperlite convert now, because the first few times I was hiked, I saw people with Hyperlites and they had broken straps, shoulder straps. They basically pushed the weight limit too high, and they're probably going for a slightly too small a pack. I think they've solved that problem. I've got a Hyperlite now, which is I think a 60 litre, which rolls down easily to 40 litres when I don't need it. And the straps are not showing any sign of wear. So I think they've solved that problem. So I've now become an advocate of Z-Packs packs and also Hyperlite packs. I think they're great. I think they serve them well, and I don't seem to have too many issues with breakages. But make sure you've got a reasonable pack and don't push the weight limit too much. The last thing you want is to be in the Sierra with a broken shoulder strap. And I have seen people with them because they went to too small a pack, thought it was a great idea, and the straps are broken because they've overloaded it. So, hey, no surprise there. Right, what else? Oh, my favourite, yeah. Electronic tools. Right, Far Out app. Brilliant piece of kit. I download the full PCT sections. Make sure you download the offline background maps. Now, I personally chose the Thunder Forest maps on the back. Basically, they're the maps that sort of you see displayed with all contours and things like that, and then they have the red line which is showing the PCT across it. Good system. Make sure you download that before you start and know how to use Far Out. Every year we see people at Lake Moreno, which is mile 20, downloading Far Out or downloading Far Out maps and learning how to use it. It is a great resource primarily for the hiker comments, because hikers ahead of you will be posting comments on water sources and camp situations and news and things like that live, or sort of each time you get into town, you basically upload or update the comments section, and you get the latest information for the section you're then going to hike into. So that is why Far Out is really good. There are other apps out there. People use All Trails and things like that, and these are, again, for navigation or just keeping track of where you are, useful. But the Far Out app is just somehow just another level ahead of all those. So in terms of just the support for hikers. Now, the other tool you might use is, hopefully will use, is a satellite beacon like an InReach. There's an InReach Mini 2 or 3 now, I think. You can send text. I think, again, useful devices. There is the iPhone system. I don't know how good that is. They now offer a satellite feature. And there have been circumstances, I think there was a hurricane in Florida where showed that the system did work reasonably well for people who had lost all basically maybe the cell service. I personally would still go for an InReach at the moment, and rather than a phone. I have one of those early big screen InReaches which has a mapping system, so I've got a full set of maps on my phone from far out, and I've got a full set of maps on my Garmin InReach which is displayable on my screen as well. But most people now go for the InReach Mini, and it is, I think we're on that sort of cusp where the satellite's capabilities of phones are coming up. Are they really proven yet? In my mind, no, they're not, but I think in a year or so, 2 years or so, then I think they will be. So again, yeah, I'd go for the InReach now, but that's, again, my personal choice. But I know people who are relying on the iPhone systems, the satellite systems from their phones. So you make your choice. Whatever you choose, make sure you know how to use it. Again, don't be one of those people sitting at Lake Morona at mile 20, downloading the Garmin maps or learning how to send a message with your Garmin or your InReach. Yeah, do it now while you've got time. Practice it. Set up some preset messages. That's the other one. You can set up messages whereby you just literally select, yes, a message like you've saved, yes, I've reached town, I'm okay, yeah, don't worry, those sort of things. They're all preset, you don't have to retype them. Okay, next one. Okay, food. Now, first couple of days, it's bizarre. You actually don't feel that hungry. Very bizarre, actually. Don't be sort of thinking you're going to carry tons of food from the start. You don't. Mile 20, you've got... I normally stop at Lake Morona malt shop and have a big meal there. So I carry very little from the start. I normally carry snacks and maybe one day's food if for some reason, if I get injured or I take it slow. I've got a meal. But yeah, I sort of fill up at Lake Morona and then buy enough food and snacks to get me to Mount Laguna at mile 42. And rinse and repeat, do exactly the same there. Have something to eat. Now, Mount Laguna, is one of those towns where for some reason they close hours on certain days. So I think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I think they close, but they service the weekends, the weekdays and weekends. So just be careful there. Just check what days you're going through and the restaurants are open. Now, they may open a few more days for the hikers, but yeah, just be careful with Mount Laguna, just on the what days the shops are open. The main store is usually open all year round, but the big restaurants maybe, or not big, the restaurants, sorry, they're very nice, but they're not open all days. It's also a reminder of if you're going to send parcels via the post office. Now, do you send something from the start? The one that I said previously was obviously snow gear. You might send. Now with snow gear, whenever you send a parcel via the postal service, I normally use a priority mail and send it to what's called general delivery, or in the case of Paradise Valley Cafe, you send it to Paradise Valley Cafe. I always pack it out with extra stuff, because if you pay the fee for the priority mail, it has a weight limit, but it's very hard to hit that weight limit because it's quite high. So what you do is, if you're sending stuff, make sure you pack those parcels out, fill in the gaps, put stuff in the extra treats or extra snacks. Just use the weight. It doesn't cost you any more. So if you're going to use the priority mail, that's the way to do it. Same thing if you're sending stuff into Kennedy Meadows, which is the sort of starting point for the Sierra. If you've used your snow gear, say at San Jacinto or at Baden Powell, you might then send it forward to Kennedy Meadows. Well, not might, you will. And pack them out, put loads of resupply in there, anything you want at Kennedy Meadows, and then use the local stores to finalise your resupply. Kennedy Meadows is one of those places where, well, I call it an island resort, in that once you're in there, you are totally reliant on what's there. Now, most of the time you can normally get stuff there that you want, but don't guarantee that you'll get everything you want. So I tend to, anything I know I definitely want through the Sierra, I send in a parcel there to a place called Grumpy Bears, which is a sort of a restaurant place that holds parcels for hikers. And then I use the local stores to sort of finalise my resupply. I wouldn't go in there expecting to fully resupply everything and have everything you want there It's a risk you take. You might, sometimes they sell out, sometimes they may not carry what you want. Make sure you send the essentials that you want into Kenny Meadows. All right, food wise, find stuff that you like. So if you, all this high calorie, super high calorie stuff, putting olive oil into food and things like that, be careful with some of this, because your body may not immediately be used to it, and you might have a few, shall we say, accidents. Certainly with oils, you may find that your body can't necessarily tolerate huge amounts of this oil. So be careful. Maybe do a few practice meals actually when you're doing your shakedown hikes. If you're one of these people that's like making up lots of meals to yourself, brilliant. If you want to send a few forward, brilliant. But I wouldn't rush to send like 15 pre-packed, priority boxes ahead, and you see these photos of people with, their living rooms full of boxes that they're putting 5 snacks a day on each one. If that works for you, then go for it. It doesn't work for me. I'm not that organised, and on 5 hikes I've never felt the need to be that organised. But if it makes you feel good and you know exactly what you want when you want, then great. I find that my taste changed dramatically at different phases of the trail. I'll find some things that which I loved and ate, voraciously for weeks on end. I suddenly just absolutely can't stomach. I can't even look at them. Your taste will change as you hike. Hike hunger is a completely bizarre experience when you sort of basically find you can eat anything. And you will. So keep that in mind. So maybe do a few test meals, but if you want to be that organised, I'm sorry, I'm not criticising you. I'm just saying it's not for everybody. It's not necessary. Obviously, if you've got a dietary requirement specifically, then I fully understand why you need to do that. Yeah, obviously that makes perfect sense. Another one, social media. Oh look, we're on social media. I would advise you to look at a lot of sources if you've got time. There is lots of fantastic information out there. Some I agree with, some I don't. And you'll find the same thing. You'll be watching, you're thinking, I don't agree with that. That's why it's good to sort of look at different sources. There is no one way to do it. There's no one way or the highway, despite what some experts, supposed self-appointed experts, seem to say. You will find things that resonate with you from some people, and some they think, nope, don't like that particular one. So obviously pick and choose what works for you. It's your hike. Now, there are lots of Facebook groups that I think are really good, and they're the Trail Angel ones. Now, as you go up trail and move through different sections, there are different Facebook groups covering those sections, and they are really good. They are supported by angels, and the people who run these Facebook groups are usually ex-hikers themselves, and they're happy to do it. So keep an eye out for the Facebook groups that are Trail Angels. Now, the thing I would say is if you ever reach out for help for there, please don't just say, oh, can you help me? Just say, look, be very concise. So if you want to lift from somewhere, look, you're stuck, you want to go from this point to this point on this date at a certain time. Obviously, don't post it months in advance. These people are living their lives, they're fitting in work. Be sensible, a couple of days before or even the day before that you need a ride, then post it. But be very clear, very specific, very focused on exactly what you need, and say thank you very much. Look, willing to pay gas or whatever, or a donation. Really appreciate your help. But be very, very clear. So, because a lot of the time people just post something and then it fires 15 questions to say, did you mean this? Did you mean this? Yeah. Obviously, think about if you're giving someone a lift, what information you need. So, angels are brilliant. And as I said, upload join the different Facebook groups as you head up trail. There are lots of general discussion groups, some contentious, some are I'm not so sure how to describe them, and there was a couple which had commercial links, which very deliberately didn't clarify that they had commercial links, so I'm not sure if that problem's gone away yet, but we'll see. So be careful if someone's pushing something very strongly, are they commercially motivated? So I have no commercial links, I am fully self-supported. Keep that in mind. If some of the stuff you see on some of these Facebook groups, it sort of at first appears really good, but then you think, then you realise later, actually there is a commercial driver behind it. Now, The one I do still, as I mentioned in my previous video, is the shuttle. Now the shuttle is serviced, the shuttle from San Diego, squeaky gate, is a service that runs from San Diego to the southern terminus, and it's brilliant. The people are brilliant, the service is brilliant, the price is less so brilliant. And then the tipping culture in the United States, for me, compounds that. So, when you order the shuttle, there's an option to tip. You're thinking, so they've already charged you $75, and now they're asking for a tip, or suggesting a tip. And then on the drivers, there's a chance that they may expect a tip as well. So what starts at 75 can rapidly escalate what expectations are. I really, really hope that the shuttle removes the tip option at the payment centre. Payments sit on their payment system, and if they say, oh, do it, you ring up your service provider and ask them how to turn it off. It's simple. I heard that one excuse. And the other one is drivers expecting tips. If you're paying 75, be realistic. That's enough. That's enough. No more tipping. So I hope the drivers put signs in those shuttles that says very clearly, you've paid your money, thank you. Tips are not expected, don't worry. They're not expected. If they then further want to do that, give them a tip, that's their choice. But you've been very clear, certainly for the internationals, that tips are no longer required or expected. So that is what I hope they do. The tipping culture in America for international can be very confusing. And at $75 for a ride, when there are angels and buses at $8 a time, I hope the shuttle does that. My personal view, it is my personal view, the people are brilliant, the service is brilliant, the price less so. I hope they bring it down, or at least they clarify very clearly at multiple stages in the transaction that tipping is not required. I hope they do that. Sorry D. Okay, move on. Okay, I'm heading back to my campsite now, so I'm going to load this up. More videos to come. I really hope they're helpful to you. They are my own personal views, so please take what you need and use it. But speak to you soon.